So I'm just making a start on this angle iron, and I'm just trying to assess where best to fit the angle iron. This is the old angle iron that's aluminium, that wants to be removed such that the batteries can sit down correctly, because they won't fit in at the moment. As we can see, it's too big, so that needs taking down to flat. And then this new angle iron here that I'm putting on, I'm hoping to use these same rivet fixings such that I can hold this to the base and also pick up the flat side web of this angle iron that wants removing, that we can just see here. This is the angle iron that isn't seen on the proper locomotive. So I'm hoping, if I get it just right, that when I drill through this angle iron here, these upstand webs of this angle iron will just captivate the battery and stop the battery sliding about from one side to another. I've removed these bits of iron just for now, such that I can sort this angle iron out. So that's the project at the moment. I'm just sorting that out. So I've just ground off the old angle iron with the angle grinder. Use the cutting disc to cut this web off, and I'm going to use a grinder to actually clean it up and take it down to where it ought to be. So I've just cut it off at the moment. So I've had a few minutes with the grinder now and made these things a little bit flatter. So now I'll get the file out and just tidy them up a bit more. But they're certainly a lot further down than they once were. So I'll try and get them somewhere near flush with the base plate of this angle iron, if you like, before it returns upon its right angle. So that's what I'll do, and I'll get the file out and have a few minutes with that, I think. So I've just touched those bits up now with a file. We'll have a go with some ebony cloth then. Just tidy them up a little bit further. They'll be painted eventually. They can't be removed completely because the base appears to be made in 3 sections. A section here at the end, a section in the middle, and then another section at the end. So this piece is tying them all together. So now I've removed the webs off these angle irons here. I'm just looking to sight the batteries for the best spacing of the batteries. And I'm looking across here at this business for the wiring, and I'm thinking that might get raised up slightly from its current position, such that we can actually get to this pin here, which is holding these bogies on. And I'm also studying these rivet points for this angle iron, which is running underneath. I think I'll drill those off completely, drill the rivets out, drop the angle iron off completely, drop it straight down, and then I can see underneath as to how much of this wiring might be exposed, as to whether it is actually a good option to remove this or to leave it in actual fact. But in any event, I can use these fixing holes then, hopefully, for this new iron to go on there, and the new iron will just nicely slide down the side of the batteries, so the batteries will be retained from sideways movement with this iron. So that's the next step. I'm going to drill these rivets out, drop this iron down, and see how we're fixed. piece of angle iron is now moving. This piece is now loose, so I'll remove these other ones now again with the drill and drop that off completely. So that's the rivets removed, and now the angle iron can come away. Then we can have a look and see what we're left with, because this will be on display now. So I've got to make my mind up now whether I want to be able to see that or not. But at least with this angle iron removed, I could get to put some detailing information on these bogie sides. My new section of steel can then go on there, that way up, and as I was saying, I can utilise the holes for fixing this new steel down. It needs cutting to length yet. So I've just repositioned the body back on such that we can have a look and see what difference there is. I think it looks quite good, to be fair, without the iron on. I think I'm reasonably happy with it removed. This is the other side with it still on. So we'll leave it off for now because I can always add it back on again later. I was just concerned that it might look a mess with the cabling going down to the motors. We'll see how we go on. So with the hammer, centre punch and drill, I've just drilled a hole in this iron. And I'm going to bolt it onto this chassis frame here with this kind of roofing nut and bolt, which will give a nice flattish, domed, good coverage head on the underside of there to give it some strength. So now I've got the steel drilled and bolted at one side. I've got it clamped at this end here. Now I'll remove this chassis base from the two bogies, then I can tip it upside down and drill the remainder of the fixing holes. So there we are, that's that removed, and we can clearly see now the three sections that the base plate is actually made of, with the middle jointing piece there. So on the right hand side here is the first nut and bolt that we've put through. We'll spot through these holes with the hand drill. And then we can clamp and bolt these two pieces together like that, giving it some further strength. And the aluminium piece that was on here before at the bottom could always be put back on later if we fancied to do so. So now it's tipped completely upside down for drilling and bolting. It's got some clamps on it to hold it together in close proximity, ready for drilling. So that's one of the irons, fully drilled, loosely bolted in place with just one bolt at one end and one bolt at the far end again. I need to get some more nuts and bolts, but at least it's held together. So now I'll do the same on the other side, and we'll see where we're at then. So both the angle irons are on now, nut and bolted, with just odd bits that I had kicking about around the house. I'll get some proper bolts for that later. But whilst I'm here, I'm looking at these wear patterns on the base of this aluminium, and they're obviously from the wheels. So the wheels are obviously catching this base plate at some point along the way, and with these new larger heavier batteries in to give me better traction on the track, it will probably increase this problem. We'll see how we go on. So now we can see the angle irons fitted. Here they are, all drilled through, ready for bolting up when I get the nuts and bolts. But whilst it's off, if anybody recognises these motors at all, I may be having issues with these motors, but I'm not just sure where to get them from at this point in time. So if anybody does recognise these motors, if they could leave me a comment stating where I might be able to get some replacement motors from. Let's tip it over. Yeah, if anybody recognises the motors, the frame, or where I might be able to get these from, leave it in the comments and that would be fantastic. I've had a comment already with respect to a company, but when I've looked on their website I've not actually seen this particular type of motor with this arrangement here. They do seem slightly different, so I'm looking for something with this casing marking here where it's stepped, as we can see there. So any comments on those motors, that would be great, thank you very much. So now with both angle irons on and the battery sat on the Loco, we can see that it does fit between the two with a bit of waggle room. So turning our attention now to these circuit breakers and this connection rail here that we can see. Some of the cabling will go into circuit breakers and some will go into connectors. But the way it appears to be wired at the moment, we have two yellow and blues coming out of this controller. One yellow and blue is feeding the front motors and the other yellow and blue are feeding the back motors. But I'm noting that of the yellow and blues, on the yellow 2 reds are going out, but on the blue a red and a black are coming back. You see the black there. So the red that's coming back, which should perhaps be a black, but maybe they didn't have black, or maybe they're trying to identify which side the motors are on, because the black set in both cases appear to go to the right hand set of motors. So maybe they originally split it up that this is the right hand motors that I've got in my hand, and the ones below that we can just see to the left there, them 2 reds, they're to the left motors. So this one here, this red here, needs some black tape on it identifying that it's the negative of the motor circuit, so that eventually the black, which I've got in my hand, and the red with some black tape going on it. Here's the black tape. These both need to go into a connector and the same connector. So that's the rough temporary work done on the DIN rail connection now on the MCBs. So it does make a little more sense to myself now. It looks a bit messy, but it's not completed yet, obviously. I've just replaced the old equipment with the new equipment, connected it up to the batteries, and although it's only sat on this piece of board with about 4 inch of movement, 3 inch of movement either end, it does actually work. The DIN rail wants cutting to length, yet as we can see here it's too long for the width of the Loco. We knew it would be a push, so we'll have to see how that goes. But at least it is connected and it's working. So I just need to tidy it all up now and then give it a go down at the track. When I've got my additional nuts and bolts in, etc. So there we are, work in progress, but when I get those nuts and bolts back in and that DIN rail secured in place, I should have a running Loco again. So I'll get that little lot sorted out, tied it up, and then I'll take it down to the club and see what happens when it's on the track. Okay, so thanks for watching and bye for now.